Hi, I'm Matt Holland. I'm a combat designer at Larian Studios.
It has been a long ass time since we got a Baldur's Gate. A lot of things have changed, especially about D&D. So I'm curious, are you guys using more of the 5th edition rules this time around for Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah, absolutely. So Baldur's Gate 3 is a 5th edition campaign where Larian is your personal DM, and there are a few house rules. That's how we see the game we're making.
Nice, but like most of the core design, you kind of started with like the 5th edition rulebook and worked your way up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is based off 5th edition for our rule set.
Nice, killer. So, one of the things that I noticed during our demonstration is you've really opened up the doors to kind of give people the ability to approach scenarios however they want in unique and creative ways that aren't necessarily like, oh, we're about to throw down in combat, right?
Yeah. So this is a big thing we carried over from DOS 2. However, whatever challenge we put in front of the player, whether it's a tricky situation or a combat encounter, we always want to give the player the opportunity to be as creative and as tricky as they can be, and then reward that creativity. Like you saw Sven at the encounter with the bandits, he made one of his players branch off, go behind the bandits, so that when he started combat, he was able to take the advantage away from the gnome standing on the box by shoving him down into the pit below. We just try to put these little tidbits and opportunities to be creative and throughout everything in our game.
Nice. So that means obviously that people are going to be doing things that you don't expect. Like, what are some of the things that you've seen like in development so far that you can talk about? Like, where you're like, oh my god, I never would have thought that someone would approach this situation like that.
I think it happens a lot more naturally. So we'll get done creating a combat scenario, and then an artist will put a fire brazier into the combat area, like you saw with Sven over there. And so, we see this fire brazier with this nice juicy rope connected to it. Like, I want to shoot that fire brazier and knock it onto a goblin's head. So what do? We talk to the artists, the animators, to everybody, and we make sure that the player can now do that as well. So we really just want to keep on adding new levels of systemics into the game to give the players more options.
It's awesome. It's all about branching paths. And there's so many branching paths, like you guys must have to take like a lot of stuff into consideration when you're building any sort of combat scenario or scene where players are going to be able to maybe throw down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's actually what makes it fun, right? Because we have so many of these systemics supported in the game, we can really just go wild and just really implement based off of Rule of Cool. And Rule of Cool is kind of how Larian operates in general. If we see something cool or think of a cool idea, we want to put it into the game and keep it.
That's awesome. Now, can we talk a little bit about, I know you're the combat designer, but can we talk a little bit about like the general story, like what's happening in Baldur's Gate 3 this time around?
Yeah, sure. So it is 100 years after the original Ballspawn saga, and once again, the Sword Coast is in turmoil, it's in danger, because of the appearance of a mysterious new cult worshipping an even more mysterious god. So, this cult is now bringing together all the forces of evil across the Sword Coast, making Baldur's Gate itself the front line of a future big ensuing combat that's been spanning for multiple generations across multiple planes of existence. So when it comes to us, the player, we haven't exactly been having a good day either. We were captured by mind flayers. We had this tadpole infected inside of us, and now the mind flayer's ship has crashed and we're stranded in the wild. So first things first, we got to survive. We got to find a healer to get this tadpole out. Or, as we'll come to learn, maybe we'll want to take that power the mind flayer's tadpole has given us, because this is a special mind flayer, we find out, and use it to come to our own ends to get the things we want. Either way, very soon we'll be deciding the fate of the realms ourselves.
There seems to be a lot of potential emphasis on stealth this time around too, which I find interesting. And you've also got a lot of verticality this time around. Like these are newer factors into the gameplay.
Yeah, so let's start with stealth. A big reason why stealth is going to play a lot better in this game is because of the turn-based outside of combat mechanic. So like you saw Sven, any time outside of combat, you can press the spacebar and time stops. The player can now act and move into position, and then once they end their turn, The world gets to resume for 6 seconds, and then the player gets to go again. You can repeat this as many times as you like. So this makes the stealth gameplay a lot less finicky than it was in DOS 2. Now you can really set up. You can go pickpocket a grenade from a character, whatever you want from a character's inventory, use it for yourself, and start combat in your terms. It just really feels a lot better if you want to play a more stealthy character. Now we actually have full 3D environments in the game, so you can have overhangs, so one player can be on an overhang above and the player can go below. This really opens up the world a lot more. Not only what things you can do in combat, with how you can approach quest design, levels, and everything. It also gave us the big opportunity to really hammer in this push gameplay, right? So you saw Sven during the demo. He's shoving characters off, making them take fall damage when they hit the ground. Different effects like the smoke powder can push characters away, putting them into bad positions. Yeah.
Now you talked about like the new turn-based feature, which is really interesting. 6 seconds is like how long you normally have to do your actions in like a regular D&D game, right?
Well, in general,
or like rather, it's like your turn is supposed to be like 6 seconds of time passing, like in the real world when you're playing D&D.
Yeah. It's also something we carried over from DOS 2. It's just a nice round number. You have 6 seconds a round, which means 10 rounds per minute. It's just nice, and intuitively players can really anticipate what the characters in the environment can do inside of their turn. We just found it worked really nice. It played well.
That's awesome. Yeah, to me, that's really like that. It gives it that essence of like actually like playing a tabletop game of D&D.
Yeah, and really that's what we're trying to do. We've trying to do that for a very long time, is take the tabletop experience and really bring it over to the video game space. So when, I think Sven touched on this as well, if you were to ask your DM during a game, I want to do this, because it's cool, shooting the fire brazier, the rope, so it falls down on a goblin's head. We want to bring all those things into our games, right? And just support the players' creativity as much as we can.
That's awesome. You guys also have you guys are going to have passive roles now. Does that play into the combat at all, as far as like perception is concerned, like during combat?
Sure. So one of the things we do have in the game is, say, destructible platforms. Now, these are very fun in combat because if you have this big structure and a bunch of enemies are standing on it, you can destroy it to knock them down. Now, you can do it the old-fashioned way and just hack away at it and until its health is dead, or if you have a high enough perception, you might see a weak spot in that structure. So if you pass your passive perception check, you can see it, you can shoot it, and bring the whole thing down.
Awesome. So really, depending on what kind of class you're playing as and like what your stats are, like you're gonna have combat opportunities other characters wouldn't necessarily have.
Absolutely. It's a big part of D&D in general is class identity, and we really want to take the spirit of that into our game as well. So if you're playing one playthrough as a rogue, you're going to have a very different experience if you're playing, say, a ranger or warlock, mage, what have you.
One of the things I find really interesting is you're mind melded to other people in your group, and like they said that when you're doing co-op play, other characters, like other players, are going to be able to see what you're thinking when you're making certain decisions in cutscenes or dialogue with other players.
So how that mechanic will actually play out in multiplayer? You mean like the certain actions they can take, or
yeah, like when like we saw like the like he's not a I want to say vampire, but he's not a vampire, but he's like almost a vampire when he makes the decision to like drain the blood from one of his companions. Like, is that something like other people that are playing with you are going to see you take that action?
So I'm actually not sure how that specific encounter will work in multiplayer. But in general, yes, there will be opportunities for players to interject in certain decisions throughout the game. Yeah.
Given the depth of the Dungeons and Dragons bestiary, which is like has like 50, 60 years worth of beasts that they've been coming up with now, and the long evolution of the series and the hiatus of the games. Are you guys just going like buck wild with like everything you're throwing in from D&D lore this time around? And are we gonna like see any deep cuts and like crazy quests this time around with some of the more bizarre denizens and monsters of the D&D universe?
Absolutely, to both questions. So first with the monsters, yeah, we want to put in all the big, juicy monsters that you'd expect from an epic D&D campaign. I won't reveal too many at the moment because we want to save that for when you guys actually get your hands in the game. But yes, we already have a lot of really cool stuff in there, and there's going to be more to come. Yeah, well, you already saw Volo during the presentation. There will be, like I said, this is a sequel to Baldur's Gate 2, so that you will see returning characters from the previous games. But yeah, you already saw the players trying to find a way to heal their tadpole, and ended up in a goblin camp where they saw the goblin leader, who was also tadpoled, and all these other hijinks going on. And honestly, that's one of the ways you can go inside of Act 1A. There's a lot more that you just haven't seen, and you go really deep down the rabbit hole with some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get some beholders in there, right? Like, everyone loves beholders.
I love beholders, you love beholders, we all love beholders.
Yeah. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so.
Yeah.
There we go, very clever. Yeah, but I mean, right off the bat, I mean, in the opening cutscenes, we've got like a giant mollusk ship like flying through the sky, teleporting in and out of different territories, being followed by dragon riders and stuff like that. So, you know, it starts off with, you guys are starting off with like a really epic scale here, and, you know, it just seems like you're going to just keep cranking up the dial as the game goes along.
Yeah, we started off really big and bombastic, and then we kind of launch you into the wilderness, back down to just trying to survive. So we really play with that sense of scale, and yeah, like you said, we are going to ramp it up as the game goes on. Get you back to those big, meaty encounters.
Yeah, but it's also kind of funky because, like, you start off and it's like you get worms, and like your whole quest is to, like, now you've got worms, you got to get rid of the worms, right?
Yeah. Well, that's one option, right? So as we find out, and was a bit alluded to in the presentation, the tadpoles we have are special, and they can actually start manifesting in different ways. So whether the player wants to remove them or use them to their advantage, like we saw Sven actually use his tadpole to kind of win persuasions against other characters. So it's a really low-level thing, but, well, what if your tadpole gets more powerful? Maybe you want to try to use it for your own ends. So that's a big decision the player's going to have to play with. It's also a big thematic through line that we've brought over from the second Baldur's Gate, having this deep, dark power inside you and choosing whether to push it away or to take it on yourself.
That's awesome. Now, when you guys are preparing, like, do you guys sit down and play a lot of tabletop D&D to kind of prep yourselves and, like, getting the creative juices flowing and figure out how you're going to approach different technical aspects of the game?
For the actual in-game situations, not so much, but a lot of us do play D&D. We try to get the office groups of D&D going, but with everyone's schedule, it's hard to get on a regular track. But yeah, no, playing D&D really does help you kind of have a better appreciation for how many different ways there are to solve even the most simple situation, and just in new and exciting creative ways, yeah.
I mean, that's got to be exciting for you to, like, see everybody try to approach the same situation from their own perspective, right? Like, no two people are going to come at things the same way.
Well, you actually saw it in the presentation when...
Nothing he tried to do actually panned out, so he had to pivot. And it was great. It worked out still. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, this guy just totally blew it in the live presentation. Like, he would just explain, like, I'm going to try and attempt to do this. And then it would be like, oops, something went wrong, but you can improvise.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one big thing. We even in DOS 2, we tried to do was that just because you failed a persuasion or the roll didn't go your way, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a new branch in your journey, in your adventure, right? So it's not necessarily about always getting the 20 on your rolls. It's about adapting and improvising to what happens in your adventure.
Nice. Now, the other thing I love is that like it's all just virtual dice rolls, right? Like you guys have implemented like a virtual system here into the game, right? So it's all based on these rolls happening behind the scene, right?
Yep, everything behind the scenes is still, it's dice. We're making sure to keep that very authentic to the D&D rule set. And yeah, like you can even see the rolls happening in real time. So you can see what happens, when the rolls go out.
Awesome, man. Yeah. No, you still feel it when, like, you know, there were a couple ones rolled and there were a couple natural 20s rolled as well. And you definitely, you know, that you get that same feeling that you get when you're playing the tabletop version of, like, either just that, like, you're smacking yourself in the head and going, oh, I rolled a 1. Or you get that 20 and you're like, yes, I'm the most triumphant, awesome, like, fantasy character ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's and you know the way the crowd reacted to those big ones and those big 20s, and that's really the feeling we're going for, right? We want that tabletop experience, like you said, just like you said, you roll the dice, and you get the big 20, and you're excited. If you get the 1, you slap your face, and but you keep on playing, no matter what the roll is.
Nice, yeah. And then I also love, like, you know, I was talking with one of the other developers about how, like, the character we were playing as today, their alignment's evil, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to make certain decisions or act a certain way, right? Like, anything's possible. Like, it's not like in, like, Knights of the Old Republic where you're trying to go dark side or light side or anything like that. Like, it's just about making whatever decision you feel is right in the moment.
Yeah, we always want the player to have decisions in their hands, and to tackle any situation the way they want to tackle it. We don't want to railroad you. We don't want to like force you or like kind of push you towards light side or dark side or good and evil or any of that. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, this is just the beginning too. Like we're seeing like a pre-alpha build today, right? So like there's you guys still have a long way to go before we're at launch or get to early access, right?
Very much so. Coming from DOS 2 to Baldur's Gate 3, we took the same engine we used to build DOS 2, and we've just been constantly building and building and building onto it to support the new systems. Just like the cinematics tool you saw, that's a completely new in-house tool we've made. We actually have some of the guys from Telltale who are now working with us, and they're helping us build that editor and get it to a place where we really want it to be. And yeah, it's just going to constantly improve until EA, and then after EA until full release.
It's awesome. Well, it's already looking great. Obviously, a lot of people are excited about this. We've been waiting patiently for Baldur's Gate 3. When are we gonna see more? Like, do you guys have a date for early access yet or anything, or are we just like it's coming? Just wait.
Unfortunately, you guys are going to be a little bit patient right now. We don't have a date set. We will see more on the stream on the 27th. But for now, you just have to.
We'll just have to wait and see, and maybe like hang out with some friends, drink some Mountain Dew, and play some tabletop in the meantime.
That's right. We've got to tide you over till you get the full Baldur's Gate 3 experience. But it is coming soon, and we can't wait for you guys to play it.